This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A popular coffee chain in Winnipeg's Osborne Village is closing next week. Customers and the local biz say staff at Starbucks told them it's because of safety concerns in the neighborhood. The closure comes after an assault yesterday outside the cafe and other violent incidents over the past few months. CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports.
A sign on the door of the Osborne Starbucks says the closure is temporary. It's disappointing to customers.
It's very sad to see it closing.
I've been going here for 11 and a half years, and you meet people, and it's too bad that they're closing down. It's just a shame.
This customer says staff told him they're closing due to violence in the area. A spokesperson for Starbucks did not provide a reason for the closure. It comes, though, on the heels of an assault at the nearby Liquor Mart Wednesday. Winnipeg police say a 39-year-old man attacked a customer waiting in line outside.
The suspect fled. Police apprehended him in the parking lot. There was a little bit of an altercation. He was taken into custody. Taser was deployed. And I understand that the victim is doing okay now. 39-year-old male charged with an assault by way of choke to overcome.
Zorae Gervais with Osborne Village Biz says Starbucks isn't the first business to close over safety concerns.
This is a case where I believe safety is the only thing, and that to me is why it's so alarming, and I hope that it rings some alarm bells to the city and to the province, because this is a problem.
In April, a man was attacked down the street by Burger King. In November, 3 people were stabbed in broad daylight at Shoppers Drug Mart.
It's deeply concerning. You know, businesses in an area like Osborne, they're not equipped and they shouldn't have to deal with these incredibly violent issues. These are directly pertaining to issues around addictions and substance abuse and homelessness and lack of resources for mental health.
Gervais says patrols and safe walks from Sabe Peace Walkers are helping, but businesses, residents, and Sabe need more support. Gerard Daly says the safety issues concern him too.
The drug use and people beating up one another and harassing other people. And all I can say, it's really sad.
A spokesperson for Starbucks says employees at the Osborne location will be able to transfer to another store temporarily. They say the company hasn't set a date for reopening. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Police are investigating after a Winnipeg grocery store supervisor allegedly punched a woman. Staff accused her of shoplifting. The incident over the weekend garnered outrage online and a call for an apology. CBC's Brittany Greenslade has more.
A supervisor from this food fair on Portage Avenue has been suspended after a confrontation with a woman left her with a bloody face and lip.
It happened at this food fair grocery store on Portage Avenue at Arlington around 5 o'clock Sunday evening. According to one witness, a woman and her young son were getting ready to check out when she was accused of stealing food by a supervisor who demanded she take it out of her purse. But Angela Antoine says the woman claimed she didn't have anything. Then the situation escalated.
So he grabbed her bag and she's refusing to give it up. And that's when he just like wound up and punched her.
Antoine says the woman fell to the ground before other employees stepped in.
She's pretty shook. Like her little boy too is you know, like you can imagine, like the little boy saw his mother, like the person that's supposed to protect him, get knocked out by some guy.
In a statement, Food Fair says dealing with incidents of shoplifting is a challenging and complex task. But the owner also added that the worker involved has been suspended pending further investigation. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs provide food vouchers and coupons to First Nations people to use at Food Fair. Grand Chief Kathy Merrick says the incident is not acceptable, and the organization has since cut its ties with the grocer.
Our relationship at this point in time is disconnected until hopefully that we can rectify and be able to get an apology to the family, to the woman.
Food Fair says it's seeking partnerships with Indigenous organizations to offer cross-cultural training and prevent similar incidents in the future. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Problems with crime aren't unique to businesses in the city. Premier Wab Kinew visited Swan River today, where rampant property and retail crime has left the community fed up. The town has installed dozens of security cameras and bought a patrol vehicle. Its crime severity rate is 3.5 times higher than the Manitoba average. Kinew said his government would return in the summer for a meeting about crime. He wants the community to have a say.
This has been such a hot topic here in the Swan Valley region that we really think it's necessary that we spend a significant amount of time and a significant deep dive, if you will, in terms of hearing the voices, the challenges, some of the local solutions as well.
The province is also planning public safety summits in Westman and northern Manitoba. The first one was held earlier this week in Winnipeg. The city of Winnipeg is letting a homeowner in Charleswood keep an oversized garage he built without any permits. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, the area councillor is upset his colleagues didn't slam the door on that garage.
I never thought it would be this big. Like, this is crazy how big it is.
Darren Van Winsberg lives on Liberty Street in the Wilkes South neighborhood. He's unhappy with the liberties taken by his neighbor to the south. Tylen Unruh built this 4,900 square foot garage without a development permit or a building permit. So Van Winsberg complained.
My backyard used to be like a park. Now it feels like I live in an industrial park.
When Unruh applied for a variance in order to make this garage legal, the city's property department turned him down. They noted the garage is 4 times the size of what's permitted on a residential property. So Unruh filed an appeal. And on Wednesday, City Council's Appeals Committee voted to allow the garage to stay. Councillor Brian Mays, the chair of the committee, says he's had other councillors approve lot splits and all manner of variances in his St. Vital ward.
I guess if we're concerned about the views of the neighbours in some parts of the city, maybe we should think about that in other parts of the city.
Evan Duncan, the city councillor who represents Wilkes South, said he can't believe the decision to approve this garage.
The message that residents are getting from this, especially in that area, is that don't worry about a permit. You can go through the processes of appeal and essentially get a slap on the hand.
Van Winsberg is also furious.
It sets a very bad precedent for Charleswood and the whole city, because this is now what people can do. There's no need to pull a permit, just build it, and the city will give you a small fine at the end, and just pay your small fine, and you get away with it.
But planning consultant John Winthrop says his client, Tylen Unruh, didn't know he needed a permit to build this garage.
Many Winnipeggers are unaware that you actually need to get building permits and development permits for garages and structures.
Winthrop describes Wilkes South as a semi-rural area. Most of the lots are huge, there's no water and sewer service, and some of the land is zoned for agriculture.
This property is the size of a CFL football field, and we're putting a barn on it, essentially.
This garage exists, and the appeal committee has made its decision to allow it to remain here. Darren Van Winsberg says he's speaking to Councillor Evan Duncan about what possibly could be done next. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg has chosen an Alberta company to design and install a hydrogen production station for zero-emission buses. It's poised to award the $9 billion contract to Red Deer-based Azola Hydrogen on May 7th. Once installed, the equipment will use methanol as a source of hydrogen. The city had previously looked for a way to produce hydrogen from water, but found that was too expensive. The transit official in charge of the project says running buses on hydrogen made from methanol generates 60% less emissions than running buses on diesel. They expect the project to pave the way for cleaner forms of hydrogen production in Manitoba. Convicted sex offender Peter Nygard has filed a defamation lawsuit against Vancouver actress April Tellick a month after he was charged with sexually assaulting her. Legal experts and academics say it's a form of witness intimidation that's on the rise worldwide. CBC's Caroline Bargood explains.
People accused of a crime have a right to vigorously defend themselves, but experts say this goes far beyond that.
April Tellick came to Winnipeg in 1993 to model Peter Nygard's signature line. When she arrived,
She was taken to Nygard's Notre Dame warehouse, where she says she was held captive for days, drugged and sexually assaulted. Last July, Winnipeg police charged the 82-year-old disgraced fashion mogul. In an interview with CBC News, Telek reacted to the news, calling it a huge victory, but expressed concerns that Nygard wasn't charged in relation to the other victims who came forward. A month later, Nygard sued her and CBC News for defamation. Experts say filing a defamation lawsuit against someone you are charged with sexually assaulting could be used as a way to intimidate that victim from dropping the criminal allegations or scare other victims from coming forward.
I can't think of another instance where a lawsuit like this has been commenced while the criminal proceedings are ongoing. It does seem to be an example of, or an attempt at, witness intimidation.
It is a criminal code offense in Canada to intimidate a witness. Legal experts say the timing of Nygard's lawsuit is questionable. Winnipeg police say they continue to provide ongoing support to the survivors of sexual assault, but due to this matter still being before the courts, we can't comment further. Telek was reluctant to comment because of the lawsuit, but said, "He's suing me, claiming that previous public statements I made damaged his reputation. The reputation of an individual who was already under investigation in multiple jurisdictions for sexual assault, who has since been found guilty by a jury." Toronto therapist, activist, and author Shannon Maroney has been working with Nygard's accusers for years.
And I'm left wondering, how is this even possible? How is this not just the most blatant act of intimidation that somebody could carry out?
Mandy Gray is an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology at Trent University in Peterborough, Ontario. She wrote a book about the issue and says defamation lawsuits filed against women who report sexual violence is on the rise globally and could have a chilling effect. She says women are being sued not just for reporting to police, but also for telling friends and family what happened to them.
We're going to see not just a disappearance of larger public conversations about sexual violence, but also a fear of telling a family member or having conversations with friends or a trusted network of people about sexual violence, which is the exact opposite of what the Me Too movement had intended to do.
Nygard is also suing CBC News and says our reporting has lowered his character and reputation in the eyes of the public, something the public broadcaster denies. As Mr. Nygard has already been convicted of 4 counts of sexual assault, we are confident a court will agree this lawsuit has absolutely no merit, wrote CBC's head of public affairs Chuck Thompson in an email. It is concerning to us that Mr. Nygard is allowed to sue Ms. Telek simply for telling her story to media, especially when her story has been corroborated by many other women who have had similar experiences with him. In November, Nygard was convicted of sexual assault in Toronto. He'll be sentenced May 14th. He's also facing charges in Montreal, Winnipeg, and New York. Nygard's lawyer did not answer our questions about whether the lawsuit is intended to silence or intimidate Telek. Ontario and British Columbia have what's called anti-SLAPP legislation to quickly put an end to these types of lawsuits, but Manitoba does not. SLAPP stands for Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation. In a typical defamation lawsuit, the burden lies on the defendant to prove they didn't defame the plaintiff. But under anti-SLAPP legislation, the burden shifts to the plaintiff to show that there is merit. This allows the courts to dismiss frivolous lawsuits at the early stages. Because Manitoba doesn't have anti-SLAPP legislation, it means April Telek will likely have to spend thousands of dollars in legal fees defending herself in this defamation lawsuit. As for her criminal trial against Nygard, no date has yet been set. Caroline Bargood, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's Justice Minister sent CBC News a statement which says the government is currently exploring options to protect the public from SLAPP lawsuits without giving a timeline. If you have a tip for our I-Team, you can call our confidential tip line at 204-788-3744 or email iteam@cbc.ca. We usually see red dresses as a symbol to honor missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, but a school in Selkirk is bringing awareness in a different way. CBC's Zubina Ahmed shows us how.
Honoring each woman with a song. There are almost 2,000 faceless dolls on display at Selkirk's High School to recognize May 5th as the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, also known as Red Dress Day. Kathleen Schick is the teacher behind the project.
Some of them have red dresses, some of them have handprints over their mouth. I think a lot of them wanted to be colorful and commemorate these women that went missing, and think about what kind of hair they had. You know, did they have gray hair? Were they older? Were they younger? What did they wear when they went missing? So it was a great conversation piece.
The Faceless Dolls project started at the school 5 years ago. Students and teachers get together to create each doll. Schick says it helps students understand the national crisis.
I think it gives a great platform for talking about why these women are missing. Why are they not here? And why don't they have faces? We had conversations about what was the purpose of having a faceless doll. So a lot of them have gone missing. We don't know who they are. And so that was kind of the piece to it.
17-year-old Mackenzie Serger helped make the dolls. Her mother is Métis and her dad is First Nations. She says this project is close to her heart.
To me, it's really important. I had family in residential schools, and I did have some family a while down the line that were like missing or murdered, like Indigenous women especially. And it's just really nice to see the fact that some of those like people can be represented through these dolls that we made in the school.
16-year-old Caroline Roth is an international student from Germany. She moved to Manitoba last year.
It's part of the history of Canada, so it's very important to remind to it, especially if it happens so in such a big amount.
Schick says they plan to keep the display at the school permanently because they want to bring year-round awareness. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The daughter of a woman killed in Winnipeg about 2 years ago gave a lecture today at the University of Manitoba. Cambria Harris spoke at an event held for Red Dress Day to honor missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. Harris says while her mom, Morgan Harris, struggled with mental health and addiction, she was also a loving and fierce mother. Harris told a crowd of dozens of people what her mother was like and the struggles she faced as a vulnerable First Nations woman. Harris says she hopes people left the event feeling more empathetic and informed.
I want to be able to provide that transparency to not only my community, but to members of the public, to give people an idea on what this kind of situation is like when you have to live through it, because some people will never, ever, ever have to step in those shoes, but I think it's important to acknowledge it.
The man accused of killing Harris's mother and 3 other women is about to go on trial. A jury is scheduled to start hearing evidence in Jeremy Skibicki's trial next week. He's pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. To some breaking news now. A section of Winnipeg's Perimeter Highway, northeast of the city, is closed because of a crash. STARS Air Ambulance was called to the scene. A man in his 40s was transported to hospital in serious but stable condition, according to STARS. The province sent out a notice of closure on the Highway 101 at the intersection with Wenzel Road just before 5 this evening. For updates on this story, you can head to our website, cbcmanitoba.ca. The Winnipeg Jets are trying to figure out what went wrong after they were booted from the Stanley Cup playoffs in just 5 games. The Jets beat the Colorado Avalanche in Game 1, but went down in defeat for the next 4.
And looking back, I don't know if I even saw half of the pucks go in the net. They did a great job, but for me to not be able to put my foot down on a single game is really heartbreaking, because it's not typically how I do things.
And I take full responsibility for that playoff performance. I do. Our team did not play well. So the standards that I had set for the team and myself, we didn't reach that standard. So I put the onus on me to make sure that doesn't happen again.
It hurts. I can't tell you, didn't get emotional after the series. you're in it with these guys, and you feel for them. You feel for the organization. I definitely feel for the fans.
And a programming note for tomorrow's newscast. We'll be on at 5:30 for a half-hour show ahead of Game 6 between Vancouver and Nashville. You can also stream our show anytime on the CBC News app, on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel, or on our website. CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now. Riley, what a downpour we had today.
You know, I did like that it smelled like rain outside, though.
It was nice.
It smelled really fresh.
And it cleans off the streets.
Yes, that is very true. Still some rain moving through the province as we get through the overnight period. Emily, we'll look at satellite radar right now. Yeah, we're still seeing a widespread area of rain really across southern Manitoba into northwestern Ontario, and even some heavier pockets still south of the border, so we're not quite done with the rain yet, at least here in southern Manitoba. Looking a bit closer here, yeah, there's some heavier pockets of rain here in southern Manitoba as well, so we will see some periods of rain still continuing as we head through into the evening hours tonight. So here's how that looks on Futurecast as we get through the evening tonight. You can see by the time we hit 3:30 in the morning, the rain for the most part tapers off to periods of light rain or some showers through the Red River Valley. Hint of maybe a flurry once again through the higher elevations of the Duck and the Riding Mountains early in the morning, but generally we're looking at a mainly cloudy start today with some lingering showers as we get through the morning hours into the afternoon. So some periods of light rain or some showers is what I'm saying as we head through the day on Friday. Into Saturday, that's when we start to see some more clearing in earnest here. We do still have a few lingering showers yet first thing in the morning, but by the time we get to the afternoon hours, Saturday into Sunday, we will start to see the sun once again, and we're looking at a mainly sunny, albeit a bit breezy end to the weekend as we get through the later part of Sunday. Ahead of what will be our next weather maker, another system rolling through with the potential to bring us some rain into early next week. In terms of rain to come over the next 48 hours or so, another 5 to 10 millimeters or so coming tonight into southern Manitoba, maybe a couple millimeters through the day tomorrow, but it's really that extreme southern part of Manitoba where we're expecting the brunt of this rain to continue to fall as we get into the evening. So can't rule out another 15 to 25 millimeters or so through places like Morden-Winkler into even as far west perhaps as Killarney. So widespread rainfall. And even some snow in northern Manitoba, maybe a couple of centimeters, especially as temperatures really dip down below the freezing mark as we get into the overnight period tonight. So we're at 10 degrees right now in Winnipeg. We've been kind of hovering around 9 or 10 for the most part throughout the day today. Pressure's falling, east winds at the moment. We'll see the winds start to back off a bit as we get through the evening hours tonight into the overnight period. Overnight looking at a temperature around 6 degrees, 7 with a few showers first thing in the morning. Notice the winds really dipping down to north 10 in the morning, picking up again to northwest 20 through the afternoon. Another couple millimeters to come tomorrow with periods of rain throughout the day tomorrow, a high of 10 degrees. And then we're back up to 19 by the time we hit Sunday, Emily, and maybe a few more showers through the early part of next week.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Pro-Palestinian demonstrators continue to gather on the campuses of several Canadian universities. We'll have more after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators continue to gather on the campuses of several Canadian universities. Tensions are especially high at McGill University in Montreal, where protesters set up an encampment 6 days ago. They've ignored calls to dismantle it. In response, Quebec's premier has asked police to intervene. CBC's Alison Northcott has more.
The encampment is now in its 6th day, with protesters here demanding that McGill University divest from companies they say have links to Israel. But there was also a counter-protest here, with Jewish groups gathering in front of the university gates. They are against the encampment. They say it should be taken down. They say that it is making Jewish students on campus feel unsafe and feel threatened. There was a strong police presence on campus, with officers on horseback, on bikes, and on foot. Lines of police keeping both sides physically separated.
I think it's important that students and everyone know that the Jewish community is not, we're not going to give in to anti-Semitism, and that we're going to stand for our values that we've always stood for peace, for love, for peaceful discord, and for defending our right to exist and our right to self-determination.
It's important to recognize that we're talking about over 35,000 people genocided. This isn't a war, Israel against Hamas, and I'm tired of hearing it framed like that. This is a genocide of Palestinian civilians, of children.
Despite calls from McGill University for the people behind the encampment to leave, it remains here. They have asked for police assistance, but so far police have not moved in to dismantle the camp. Premier François Legault says it's time for the encampment to go.
Everybody in Quebec has to respect laws. And right now, these encampments are illegal. So we have to respect law, and I want to make sure that the police officers make sure that the laws are respected.
But for now, the demonstrators are still here. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Meanwhile, the LA campus of the University of California is relatively quiet today. Following violence overnight surrounding pro-Palestinian demonstrations, hundreds of protesters were arrested when police moved in to clear their encampment. CBC's Lindsay Duncombe has more from UCLA campus.
The protesters are gone, many arrested, and the cleanup is well underway here. Less than 24 hours ago, this place was full of tents and barricades. Police moved into the pro-Palestinian encampment in the wee hours. Hundreds of officers from several forces, some firing rubber bullets. Protesters resisted. Police say some threw projectiles. Irritants sprayed on both sides. This police action came a day after 100 counter-protesters clashed with protesters in the camp.
We didn't see no injuries on both ends. Our officers were able to remove the agitators. We're still working on a few agitators that are still on campus. However, we are making progress. Our officers are going to be here all day assisting the UCLA Police Department, try to get the protesters to discourage the protesters from coming back. We'll be here and we're very well prepared.
More than 200 protesters were arrested, led one by one onto buses. It will be up to prosecutors to determine if charges will be laid.
I think that police uphold the system of oppression, and obviously it's not right. They're just upholding the status quo. So we need to resist, and we need to keep protesting, and that's the only way change will be made, right? By resisting the status quo.
President Joe Biden spoke about the campus protests in Washington today.
Dissent is essential to democracy. But dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education.
He rejected calls to bring in the National Guard and said his administration's stance on Israel hasn't changed. More than 50,000 students attend UCLA. Today and tomorrow, classes will be virtual. The tents may be gone, but the anger and divisions remain. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Los Angeles.
A new UN report says rebuilding Gaza's shattered landscape could take more than 15 years.
72% of all housing in Gaza has been destroyed. We haven't seen anything like this since 1945, since Second World War. That intensity in such a short time and the massive scale of destruction.
About 80,000 homes have been destroyed in the war between Israel and Hamas. UN officials say decades of human developments have been wiped out by nearly 7 months of bombardment. The conflict started after the deadly attack in southern Israel by Hamas fighters on October 7th. As the fighting continues in Gaza, many more middle-class households are expected to slide below the poverty line. U.S. officials are trying to contain a massive outbreak of avian flu in cattle south of the border. Scientists here are warning Canada isn't doing enough to proactively monitor for the virus. CBC's Lauren Pelly has more on their calls for action.
South of the border, an unprecedented outbreak of bird flu in dairy cattle keeps growing. More than 30 herds across 9 U.S. states now have confirmed infections, and scientists warn the outbreak is even bigger than it appears. Government tests on processed milk found virus fragments in 1 out of every 5 samples.
The fact that we're finding viral RNA in pasteurized milk doesn't mean that there's virus in the pasteurized milk that's going to make people sick. But it does mean that there was an infected cow contributing to the milk supply.
Officials say there are no reports of this virus in Canadian dairy cattle, but there have been millions of infections among wild and farmed birds across the country, suggesting there's plenty of H5N1 circulating here, too.
CBC News asked federal officials what process is in place to detect any traces of the virus in Canadian milk. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says that's not happening yet. They'll help with testing should H5N1 be detected in Canadian cattle. The agency is also requiring dairy cows imported from the U.S. to be screened for bird flu.
I think we're way behind the virus.
Scientists say Canada needs to be more proactive.
In the absence of a robust national surveillance program, there's no way to know if there is infections here or not.
At the University of Guelph, researchers are taking matters into their own hands. The team started tracking influenza in Ontario wastewater a few months ago to study trends in human infections. Now they're pivoting to see if any H5N1 shows up.
We're seeing very low levels, if any, of influenza right now. So if we should see a sudden spike, then that would certainly get our attention.
The hope is by tracking the virus early, there's a chance Canada could prevent an explosion of cases striking our dairy cattle as well. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, ranchers in northern Alberta are gearing up to keep livestock safe through wildfire season. Stay tuned for tips on how farmers can prepare and keep a cool head. Plus, Riley will be back with the Manitoba forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. It's a highly challenging and potentially heartbreaking aspect of wildfire evacuations, moving large numbers of farm animals to safety. Last year's extreme weather is prompting farmers in Alberta to plan ahead for this season. CBC's Dennis Coveton reports.
After a dry winter and spring, there is plenty of dry grass and wood strewn about the fields and forests of the Peace region. Perfect conditions for a fire to take off.
Last few years have been challenging for us. We've went through fires, we've went through floods up in this part of the world.
And across the province, livestock owners like Gary Smith are putting together plans to keep their animals safe. That includes preparing them for an emergency.
Have your animals used to being moved around, have them used to having people around them if you can. With horses and some of the smaller livestock, sometimes it's very difficult to get them to go where you want them to go because they pick up on the energy and the excitement or crisis of the moment, and they might be a little harder to handle than normal.
The Alberta government recommends that producers also identify safe places to relocate their animals in the event of a wildfire.
Up here in Mackenzie County, we have emergency response plan for the agriculture, for livestock, whether it's horses, cows, pigs, whatever you got. We got the grazing reserve that we can house animals in evacuation purposes.
Alberta Wildfire advises producers to proactively share their plans and information about their animals with each other.
Some of these things can include what type of animals that you have on your farm, what kind of medications that the animals have, and any, anything high risk that you might have on your farm.
Smith says keeping a cool head is paramount, especially when animals need to be relocated.
To bring them out of the pasture, do it as you normally would, and pay attention to your stock. They'll tell you a little bit too, so follow along with them and move them into position, and then you can get them in the pens and do what you got to do, sort them out and get them loaded on the trucks.
And if the animals cannot be safely moved in time,
last resort, cut your fences, run them through, and we'll gather them after the fire stopped.
Dennis Coveton, CBC News, Grande Prairie.
Riley Lachuk's back now with the weather. Riley, I guess people need to bring an umbrella if they're heading out tonight.
Yeah, there's probably going to be more than a few soggy dogs.
Soggy dogs.
For the morning dog walk. Having a look at the weather for that dog walk in the morning. Yeah, we're looking at a few showers still rolling through the Winnipeg region. Tuck might get a little bit wet through the morning hours tomorrow and even through the afternoon for that walk. Thanks, Rob, for sending Tuck in. You can send your photos to talkback@cbc.ca. So we're looking at temperatures staying around 7-8 degrees for the morning hours and jumping up a little bit toward the afternoon into that 9-10 degree range. So we are looking at temperatures staying below seasonal for this time of the year. But we'll see things getting a little bit better for the weekend. I want to head west. I want to show you a little bit big picture here because we have a few things happening. So yes, this is the rain that we're seeing falling in Manitoba right now, but on this side of me, you can see some snow in parts of western Saskatchewan. That's where I'll start because we did have some snowfall warnings in place in Saskatchewan, close to the Alberta border for the Cypress Hills region, expecting up to 15 centimeters of snow by the time tomorrow morning rolls around. So yeah, some parts of the prairie still getting some snow, and on the other side of Saskatchewan, thunderstorms. Yes, through the afternoon, we did see some thunderstorm activity rolling through parts of eastern Saskatchewan throughout the afternoon. And yes, a lot of rain here in Manitoba, which is what we're seeing right now still, and still some heavier pockets of rain even down into the Red River Valley. So here's where we got to today. 10s for Winnipeg and Portage la Prairie. 8s for both Brandon and Dauphin, the daytime highs this afternoon. And look at the difference between Thompson and Barons River, 4 and 14. So yeah, lots of different numbers in our province, and that's what we're kind of getting as we get through the night tonight as well. So still some scattered showers throughout southern Manitoba. At least 6 degrees tonight for both Portage and Winnipeg. 4s in Brandon and Verdun, and cooler conditions, maybe some wet flurries in the higher elevations around the Duck and Riding Mountains. A better chance maybe for a few flurries through the Pas and Grand Rapids, both 2 overnight tonight. Norway House at 3, and still a few temperatures below the 0 mark overnight tonight. -2 overnight in Lynn Lake. As we time this out, maybe a few flurries along the border between Nunavut and Manitoba. Otherwise, we're looking at some showers and some flurries rolling through northern Manitoba. Mainly cloudy otherwise. We're looking at 6 in Thompson by the time we hit the afternoon, 7s and 8s for Flin Flon and the Pas. Rain and showers continue for southern Manitoba. First thing in the morning even, like I mentioned earlier, maybe some flurries through western Manitoba. Otherwise, we're looking at on and off showers as we head through the day. 7s for both Brandon and Verdun. By lunchtime, we're looking at 10s and 11s to the Red River Valley, Emily, and prepare for another soggy day ahead.
Aw, thank you, Riley.
You're
It's
welcome.
good for the plants.
Yeah.
Ottawa has released its annual report on greenhouse gas emissions for 2022. It was a year of economic rebound as pandemic restrictions subsided. The data shows emissions were higher than in 2021, but lower than in the previous 23 years. The federal environment minister says that's proof Ottawa's current policies are working.
Overall, this updated report shows significantly lower emissions by 44 million tons than our pre-pandemic levels. That is the equivalent of removing 13 million vehicles from our roads.
The Liberal government's goal is to cut emissions by 40% below 2005 levels by 2030. Experts say a lot more needs to change to meet that target. While the national numbers were lower in 2022 compared to 2005, Alberta saw its emissions go up 7% for the same period. Well, still to come, they're bold and fashionable, but these striking creations are actually meant to fall apart over time. We'll hear from a Winnipeg designer on why that makes her pieces sustainable, coming up after the break. A Winnipeg fashion designer is launching a new collection that isn't meant to last forever. She says her avant-garde bags, earrings, collars, and vests are a testament to style and sustainability. They're all made of interlocking felt and nothing else. No fasteners, no glues. Tejan Roshko is also an associate professor of interior design at U of M. She told CBC's Chloe Friesen how she makes these accessories.
The process itself is an art as part of the sustainability cycle that we kind of engage in this creation of this beautiful product. We create the piece and then look at the alternatives, and then we make it out of paper first.
Wow.
And we interlock everything, whether it is working or not. And then we utilize some other kind of a prototyping technologies that is available for us at the University of Manitoba Fabrication Lab. And then we create again out of paper. And then if it is really reasonable, and we connect with our manufacturer in Ontario, and we cut it through the digital cutting technologies, it requires less time, and then materials are kind of very efficiently utilized.
And then you put it together like a puzzle, I guess.
And then we put it together as a puzzle, and then multitudes of possibilities. There's a multitudes of aggregation for a given form. So we will kind of figure it out how to connect, and then we record it multiple times how we connect it. And then here is the final product, and then it takes almost kind of 6 months from the kind of a creation to the customer-worthy application.
Wow! So it's a process.
Yes, we can call ourselves slow fashion for sure.
Fashion. I'm curious about the sustainability aspect of your design. You're making this out of wool felt, something that will decompose if you so choose. How does it feel as an artist to create something that ultimately won't last forever? I feel like we hear about artists creating their masterpiece that will stand the test of time.
I know.
And this is something you're making.
This is
to decompose.
Amazing question. Really, really very good point. And this is almost kind of, again, part of the sustainability process, that democratization of art. And it could be beautiful, but it doesn't need to last forever. And if it is kind of fulfill its usefulness, and then it should be decomposing. It should be disappearing and making way to the new pieces and new elements. But the process itself is the art. Process itself to kind of create these amazing forms and shapes that we can utilize.
Well, it was a wet day in southern Manitoba. Riley's back with a last check on the forecast coming up next.
Well, we're looking at a soggy night ahead across much of Manitoba. Into northwestern Ontario, though, we have seen the rain start to taper off a little bit, but still some showers moving through Kenora and Dryden. But the main event back here in Manitoba, of course, with some heavier pockets of rain through the Red River Valley. So, yeah, we're looking at a wet one ahead with some showers continuing through your Friday, waking up to 7 degrees first thing in the morning. North winds at 10. Temperatures really don't go a lot higher than this as we head into the afternoon. So we're looking at 10 degrees by the time we hit 4 o'clock with northwest winds at 20. At 20, that's where we get to tomorrow afternoon, warming up to 19 by Sunday. The cloud starts to move in again for Monday, and we're looking at some more rain for Tuesday, Wednesday, and more sun on the way for Thursday. Well, a 6-year-old boy from Surrey, BC experienced his dream come true after Punjabi superstar Diljit Dosanjh invited him on stage at a sold-out concert.
And the young fan got to perform in front of more than 50,000 people and alongside his idol.
Benit Brach has tonight's Daily Lift.
Vibing and doing Bhangra on stage with Diljit Dosanjh. An unforgettable moment for Surrey's Anik Buller.
I like his dancing moves and I love him. He's the best singer.
The 6-year-old sat high up on his dad's shoulders. Catching the eye of the singer, Diljit invited and carried Anik on stage.
What was it like for you to be up there?
Happy.
Tens of thousands cheered him on, and then another surprise.
And after when he danced, he gave me the jacket, and it's way too big on me.
It still looks really good on you.
And it's a skeleton jacket.
It was remarkable. I mean, we were shaking, we were crying, we had tears, text messages.
His dad says it's a moment his son has long manifested.
Through his Bhangra lessons, every time he comes home, he pretended that he was on stage with Diljit, so wanted to dress up like Diljit.
Anik started taking Bhangra classes about a year ago. His talent and smile shined bright as Diljit made history in BC Place. He's the first Punjabi artist to headline the stadium with a sold-out show for his North American Dil Luminati tour. The venue holds more than 50,000 people. And as artists like Diljit bring their music to the mainstream, the impact goes a long way, even for fans as young as Anik.
A lot of these artists are some of the biggest artists in the world. So I think that there needs to be a little bit of like an awakening to the global impact that is South Asian music, which, by the way, has almost entirely all of its roots here in British Columbia, in Vancouver and Surrey.
An electric atmosphere and an unforgettable milestone for Barinder's son.
Having someone like Diljit sold out 50,000 people, for my son to embrace his culture, his heritage, his language was something so wonderful and just speaks to what Diljit has done globally.
Their moments shared on stage have gone viral on social media. Anik says Diljit inspires him, and he had a lot of
fun.
Anik hopes to keep dancing his heart out on the stage and off. Benit Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, I think we have a star in the making there.
Exactly.
And Diljit Dosanjh is playing here in Winnipeg tomorrow night at the Canada Life Centre. That's our show for tonight. Have a good one.
See ya.